Alright, YouTube, I've had, I think, half a dozen people already in the last day ask me to weigh in on the chief strategist, Bannon, who's been put in place by Trump as part of his team there. I will say, in regards to Trump's cabinet in general, I'm more or less ambivalent to most of what goes on there. The idea of draining the swamp is a policy proposal. It has nothing to do with specifically who Trump puts into various positions. Bannon is a natural choice. I think here's a person who, depending on who you listen to from the media, he's either a fringe, like almost neo-Nazi character, which doesn't actually appear to be the case, or more of just a right-winger in general, which, I'm not right-wing myself on many issues, but do I really care? Does this specific individual have any... are they casting a vote in the House or the Senate? Are they a governor or something like that? No, they're not making executive decisions. They're just an advisory position. I don't care. I would have liked to seen... And the thing that would have gotten me going is if either Ron Paul or Rand Paul had been immediately mentioned as possibly Secretary of the Treasury. Something like that would make people go nuts. In fact, I still think it's a very good idea. If you put Ron Paul onto the Trump administration, the Democrats can kiss the youth vote goodbye. The Fed can kiss its ass goodbye. It will be very funny. It will cause chaos, and ultimately the nation would be better as a result of that specific chaos. As far as many of these positions, it doesn't ultimately make a huge difference who he's choosing. The idea that, oh, he has some CEO from some company as his chief strategist, who cares? That person's not making decisions. Trump is used to acting in a de facto executive fashion. That is, he's the head and owner of everything Trump. He is not used to negotiating with other people from a position of weakness. He's used to negotiating them from a position of strength. That is, if his advisors are proclaiming that he should do something that's not a good idea, chances are he's going to ignore them. I think ultimately his cabinet will have relatively less power than a lot of people are worried about. And anyway, some of these people are just fine. Ben Carson, yeah, he's a zealot, but who cares? Put him in as Surgeon General or something. Even Chris Christie. I'm not a big fan of Christie. I see him as corrupt. He's a machine politician, at least on the state level in New Jersey, but I don't really care. I don't really care who he chooses for his cabinet. The idea that he's already... you hear from some people, most of which I have to hazard a guess they weren't actually Trump fans. Certainly not hardened Trump fans, but probably not Trump fans at all to begin with. Oh, Trump's going back on his promises, he's backpedaling. No, not really. If you look at what he's saying, for instance, I explained about the ACA, he's saying, yeah, I'm going to keep 2 provisions, we're not going to scrap every single line of the ACA. But you're still scrapping 99% of what constituted the ACA. You're retaining the 2 things in it that made sense. That's not backpedaling. He said some time ago while he was still campaigning, yeah, we're either going to destroy it or we're going to reform it. I would class that as a pretty good reform. Nobody has a problem with pre-existing conditions being covered, except for a very, very small number of people who, I hate to unfortunately say this, but you don't understand pragmatism, you don't understand economics, and you're kind of being a wingnut. You're trying to be an absolutist. You're probably just trying to outright wing other people for show. I think that's regrettable. It's like when people on the left, they sort of try to compete to be who can be the most far left, as opposed to knowing anything about common sense. And so you have people who start proclaiming that Bernie Sanders is like a right-winger or something. It's really, really very funny. But, no, he's not backpedaling on that. He hasn't backpedaled on the TPP. People tried to claim he was. The TPP's dead. It's gone. It's already dead. He hasn't even taken the oath of office. It's done for. Obama says it's dead. Schumer says it's dead. It's dead. It's not going to be passed. We probably will end up ripping up NAFTA. At the very least, it's going to be renegotiated, which he also said. I can see the news now. When he comes out, if he comes out and says, well, we're going to renegotiate NAFTA, a lot of people say, well, he promised to tear up NAFTA. No, he didn't. He said it would either be torn up or renegotiated. He said that while campaigning, as clear as I see the webcam in front of me now. But a lot of people will pretend to be Trump fans. They were actually Clinton supporters. They'll come out and say, "Oh, he's backpedaling," because they're trying to decrease his leverage. The fact is that your efforts are basically futile. I don't care if he puts Bannon, who Politico or the New York Times wants to say is a white supremacist, on as his chief strategist. I just don't care. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't affect me. Bannon's not going to be making any actual executive decisions that are going to affect my life. And if he is in the alt-right, so fucking what? I don't have a problem with the alt-right. I'm not on the alt-right myself, but how is it at least not at least a little bit better than what we've been suffering through with like Weather Underground tied people or the crazy people that Obama surrounds himself with? A bunch of nuts and zealots, people like Loretta Lynch who don't know how to do their job. How is it worse than that? I fail to see a problem here. It's very funny. Trump comes out and says, oh, well, gay rights is a settled issue. And then you see two levels of shilling. The first level of shilling is people saying, well, it's not really true, he's going to go after gays. Or okay, well, we'll see. Well, I don't know if we can believe anything he says. He said right at the Republican convention that he had no problem with gay marriage or with gay rights and celebrated gay Republicans. They had a gay Republican stand up and give the speech at the GOP's convention. You saw it. It was on live TV, and these people are pretending. They're like mystified. They're pretending it never even happened. Trump doesn't give a fuck about the issue. Then there are other people pretending that they're the whitest nationalist. Oh, Uncle Adolf would be so enraged by these homosexuals. No, Trump is backpedaling. Trump is screwing us, stabbing us in the back. When did he campaign on "We'll end gay marriage"? If you voted for Trump, you voted for a person who doesn't give a crap about this issue. I told you that back during the Republican primaries. I also told you he doesn't care about abortion. And behold, wait a few months at most, and you'll see. He'll do not a damn thing about it. He's not going to attack Roe v. Wade. He's not going to commit political suicide. He's not. We've seen. Trump is actually less obsessed with wedge issues than most Republicans, and far less obsessed than Hillary ever was. It's one reason why he won. And he knows this. That's why he's going to continue not dabbling in that crap that other Republicans have run and lost elections based off of for the last couple of decades. It wouldn't make sense. You're not Donald Trump. You don't get to make his decisions for him. You voted for him or you didn't vote for him. Good for you, however you voted. I hope that you did. I don't care if you voted for Hillary Clinton. At least you got out and did your civic duty. But to pretend that Donald Trump is somehow screwing the American people or committing treason or doing some horrible thing by not wanting to waste his time on admittedly dead issues, or by retaining a few provisions in the ACA that will keep several million people from having their health insurance lapse, possibly killing them in the process, that's not backpedaling. That's not pandering. That's called doing what he needs to do to not get impeached, to be supported by potentially the majority of Americans. And you'll see it. A lot of these independents that were off board with his campaign said, I'm going to sit this one out. They'll jump on board. They'll like Trump once he takes office. If he continues doing the things I see him setting up to do, he's going to be really popular. He'll win re-election. That's another prediction that I'm willing to make. At this point, I said before only a couple days ago, while the Democrats, in theory, they could, if they get trounced in the midterms, then they'll have some JFK-style reformist rise up. Yeah, they probably will, but they probably still wouldn't end up winning at that point. If Trump leaves gay marriage and abortion alone, he gets his fence or wall or whatever the hell it's going to be on the southern border, and that still appears to be up in the air, which I said was probably going to be the case. I am not, by the way, I'll say one thing that I'm not too keen on, is when he comes out and says, well, I don't want to hurt her in regards to prosecuting Hillary Clinton. I think it would be a good idea to appoint a special prosecutor, and if he really doesn't want to actually go after her, then he'll just tell the special prosecutor, oh yeah, by the way, this is basically just a monkey trial, and you're going to find with the FBI or something like that. It'd be easier to do. He could pander in that way. You wouldn't even know that he was pandering. because people would just assume that he was telling the truth because he spent months saying lock her up. But yeah, he should appoint a special prosecutor in the Clinton case. It is a good idea. It will at least come off to some of his hardened fans as pandering if he doesn't, as having lied to them. Now, that would be something I can understand why they would be upset about. As far as the ACA's 2 provisions that are going to be saved, or whether we're building a wall or a fence, or having Bannon as his chief strategist, or Ben Carson or Chris Christie in some position, who cares? I don't care who he puts on his cabinet. It doesn't matter to me. It never did. I voted for Trump primarily to stop a nuclear war with Russia. That's the primary reason that I voted for Donald Trump. I don't care about which provisions of the ACA are laid waste to and which are retained. I'm glad that the ACA largely is going the way of the dinosaur. It is a failure of a bill. But I don't care whether he retains a couple of provisions. I don't care if the southern border has a completed fence, a completed wall, or a moat filled with crocodiles. It doesn't matter to me. Build something there. Do what you have to do. And I think that that's what he's going to do. He's probably going to realize, yeah, having a 50-foot concrete wall is no more effective specifically than having more drones, more towers, and more patrols on the southern border and just having a 2-layer fence. So why spend the money? Why waste the money on such a thing? Even Mexico now looks like they might actually be on board with the idea of a border wall. It's just not, we're not sure what form it's going to take. Who cares? Bannon as chief strategist. So? I don't care that he was at Breitbart. Am I far right like Bannon? No. Do I care? No, ultimately I don't. It doesn't make it. Karl Rove was chief strategist to the Bush White House, and Karl Rove is a piece of crap. He once again was spectacularly wrong on the election, has no idea about actual analysis, is a terrible pundit and an even worse pollster, and did a monumentally bad job of both propping up the ailing Bush campaign and doing guesswork in the last 2 elections, this one and then, of course, Obama-Romney. But at the same time, did the country completely fall apart? Did we stop existing? Did cats and dogs start living together and falling from the sky at the same time? No, that didn't happen. He was a moron. The Bush presidency was a failure, just like Obama's presidency, and the election speaks to this, has been an abysmal failure. But we're still here. We may be limping along, but it's going to take a hell of a lot more to put us down as a nation. Trump is trying to govern pragmatically. When he comes out and says to his fans, oh, well, the attacks on minorities or whatever need to stop. Now, some of these are false flags. Let me be quite clear. Some of this is Clinton fans spray painting swastikas on walls and saying Trump, haha, deport all minorities, because they want to raise trouble. Some of these are like the George Soros people, or die-hard Democratic partisans, anarchists, commies, people like that. Some of that's not even real. Some of this is literally Clinton supporters that have gone haywire because they were taken in by the same fake polls that the media was. Others, though, they are actual attacks of what Trump would say. He ran for the presidency to govern for all Americans. He didn't run for the presidency to be the savior of a small subset of specifically right-wing, white male individuals. That's not what he campaigned on. The fact that he's not going to do what Obama did and say, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter, hurrah, hurrah, Black Power every day, yeah, we need more racial wedge issues, that's just going back to business as normal. Obama is business as abnormal. It's very strange that we've suffered for 8 years under a president who thinks that using race and gender constantly to prop up his arguments is a good idea, necessary, or even ethically responsible. We're simply going back to the pre-Obama era where there's some focus on policy and where the government doesn't continuously browbeat people by saying you're a Nazi, you're a bigot, you're a horrible, racist, evildoer if you don't support the ACA, if you don't support this bill for more pay for women, if you don't support this new tax for homeless, bisexual, otherkin youth or something like that. We're just going back to having some common sense. That's all Trump needs to do, by the way. People have been living in la-la land for 2 administrations. We lived in the la-la land first, under Bush. where we should march in like cowboys, blow everything up, and where it was somehow unpatriotic to question the government's domestic surveillance apparatus. Which, none of that made sense. It was just a fucking illusion. For the subsequent 2 terms, Obama's 2 terms, we've suffered under the illusion that if you oppose certain government policies, almost invariably abusive big government policies, that you're a racist, sexist, homophobe, bigot, whatever else, what other newspeak terms they start using. Oh, well, blacks can't be racist, Hispanics can't be racist, women can't be sexist, blah, 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 blah. Well, it's all a bunch of bullcrap. That's exactly what it's been. We're returning to common sense. It's going to take time. Rome wasn't built in a day. You think Trump can accomplish even a fraction of what he wants to accomplish in the first 100 days? He hasn't even taken the oath of office yet. He's not even the president yet. He's the president-elect. Will you give him a fucking break? Wait till January 20th when he's sworn in, give him a couple months, and then complain if he doesn't accomplish anything? That's what I'm going to do. I'm more or less giving him a free pass until after he's actually in office. Because otherwise, we end up like those Obama fans, Obama critics. At the time, like, Romney loses. They're like, oh, not my president, Obama's terrible, evil, horrible person, and he hasn't even taken the oath of office yet. 2008, sorry. Oh, well, he's going to destroy the country, Muslim, Kenyan, whatever else under the sun. Of course, he turned out to be pretty mediocre. Obama's first term, actually, it wasn't terrible, it was just mediocre. It's the second term where he gets totally fucking screwed. All it is, well, we need to take more guns away from people. We need more taxes. We need the ACA. People will be forced to buy health insurance. And no, you're not going to keep your screwy doctor. I don't care about you white people or anything like that. That's what it devolved into. Will you give him a chance and not just constantly scrutinize everything he says? Throughout the campaign, he constantly said things that were in a manner almost contradictory to one another, to keep people guessing about what he was going to do. It's a good political strategy. Until you see actual physical results after he is actually sworn in, you have nothing to complain about. He's already assured you, yeah, I'm going to deport 2-3 million people almost immediately. There's your criminal illegals. He promised to deport them. That was a campaign pledge. Good. As for the rest, he's said, oh, well, we'll look at that later, which means I predict he won't do ultimately that much about it at all. You're going to get a southern border system. Whether it's a fence, a wall, moat, crocodiles, drones, whatever it is, you're going to get something down there. It will change for the better, it will be more effective. Bannon will be his chief strategist. Who cares? Why do I care who he puts in as chief strategist? Can't be worse than Karl Rove. Hell of a lot more intelligent than Karl Rove. Actually capable of being coherent, not storming off set when his candidate starts losing. So, yeah, I'm going to give Bannon a chance, too. I don't care if he's a racist or sexist or, oh, he worked at Breitbart, that horrible organization. I'd be more worried if he worked for CNN or the New York Times at this point. So I'm going to give him a chance. And you should, too. Even if you didn't vote for him, you're like, not my president. Well, he hasn't done anything yet. He hasn't been sworn in. It's not January. It's still November. Will you shut the fuck up and just relax for a little while and try to keep your head screwed on a little bit more tightly? Because it's flying all over the place right now. Half these people are in tears. They're in the streets. They have those old safety pins on. They don't even know what Trump's going to do. He hasn't done anything yet. They're assuming that everything that he said during the campaign should be taken absolutely literally at face value. That's funny. Obama said he was going to close Gitmo. He never did. Said he wasn't a warmonger, but we've been droning 10,000 civilians a year. So no, I'm not going to take everything seriously. I'm going to assume some of it he's going to do immediately. Some of it he'll wait on. Some of it will be tempered. And some of it he'll probably forget about. It depends on which aspects fall into which category. Ultimately, though, at the end of the day, at the very least, the Russians have already reached out to Trump. The Syrians, of all people, Assad's people, have reached out to Trump. That is a good sign of things to come. If we can just avoid nuclear war, we will be better off than if we had elected Clinton. So I'm not too worried about the border or about the ACA and what is or is not taken out of it. I don't care. That's about all. Peace out.